Good morning, Atonement. This is Pastor Kevin here, and I'm coming to you this morning with Ray Schrank and Kristin Schrank. Ray is a longtime member of Atonement, and Kristin's daughter grew up at Atonement. They're both lawyers, and they both are working with folks that are seeking asylum, and which is a community that's especially vulnerable in this season that we're in right now. And I want them to share a little bit with you this morning about their work right now. I'm going to turn it over to them right now. So give them a warm greeting from wherever you're watching this video.
Thank you, Pastor Kevin. As you all know, my name is Ray Schrank, and along with Kristin, we represent a number of asylum families through our law firm. Primarily, they're from El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. And we would like to share with you some current information about our asylum seeker clients. The coronavirus has closed the Chicago Immigration Court from March 15th through June 12th, and perhaps longer. We have not held a legal clinic since early March and are considering a clinic in late June or sometime in July. This, however, does not mean that we have not been very busy with existing clients, and we continue to have new clients. Kristin is our law firm Zoom czar, and we now use Zoom whenever possible to meet with clients, to discuss their case, answer questions, go over documents, and only meet with clients on a need to meet basis to sign documents or obtain documents. Some of our new clients have come on visitor visas, and we have filing deadlines for asylum, no matter how they came here, that they must file their asylum petition with 1 year of their arrival. We have the privilege of representing Jose, who is a 31-year-old male from El Salvador. He was granted asylum on March 13th, 2020, just 2 days before the Chicago Immigration Court shut down. Jose's older brother, Wilfredo, joined the 18th Street Gang at the age of 12 and became well known as a gang member in the country of El Salvador. Several years ago, the National Police in El Salvador instituted a policy to show that they were tough on gangs by finding gang members, torturing and killing them, and then posting that on Facebook under the tagline of Blue Hero. Wilfredo, being well known as a gang member, led to Jose being stopped by the National Police. He was tortured because they believed that Jose knew the whereabouts of his brother, who they wanted to capture. Jose did not tell him the whereabouts because actually he did not know where Wilfredo was. However, the police found Wilfredo, tortured and killed him, posted the pictures on Facebook, and as a result, the 18th Street Gang believed that Jose had disclosed the whereabouts of his brother Wilfredo. As a result of that, the 18th Street Gang came after Jose with the intent of torturing and killing him and spreading the word through El Salvador that one cannot do this. Jose escaped to the United States and on March 13th of 2020 was granted asylum. And although this was a great result for Jose, he still carries the heavy burden of his nephew, Brandon. Wilfredo, the gang member, had a son who will be 5 in September. After Wilfredo's death, his mother, who is also a member of the 18th Street Gang, said she no longer was willing or able to raise Brandon. Brandon, therefore, is parentless and guardianless in the country of El Salvador, and our plan was to use humanitarian parole through the Uncle Jose to get Brandon into the United States, who is 4 and will be 5 in September. Unfortunately, we had to wait for the asylum to be granted before we could petition for humanitarian parole. And because of the corona shutdown, Brandon still roams the streets of El Salvador, going from house to house looking for a place to sleep or getting food. Contact with him is very spotty at best. We still hope to get him here by way of humanitarian parole when things open up from coronavirus. It is important to understand that there are new obstacles that have been placed in the path of asylum seekers by the current Trump administration. Kristin will now discuss one of those obstacles, which is known as Trump's policy of stay in Mexico.
Hi, Atonement family. It's nice to be with you, even if remotely. Since July of 2019, asylum seekers, other than those coming from Mexico itself, arriving at the southern border of the United States are blocked from entering our country and are ordered to remain in Mexico until their asylum hearing can be held. Currently, there are about 35,000 asylum seekers stuck in Mexico that are not from Mexico, they're from other countries. We have several clients currently waiting there and in this situation. One of them is named Erica. She's from El Salvador. She has a sister named Rosa, who was a part of a previous presentation at Atonement. She came to the southern border last August of 2019, with her two daughters. One of the younger daughter turned 1 in February of this year, and the other daughter is 3 years old. She also came with her mother, who has a diagnosed mental illness requiring prescribed medications. Erica, her two daughters, and her mother are forced to remain in Mexico as they wait for their hearings in the El Paso Immigration Court. It is noteworthy that the El Paso Immigration Court has approximately a 98.5% denial rate for asylum seekers. So based just on that statistic, and the fact that they are assigned to that court, it does not seem promising for them, but they're still hopeful. Erica's first hearing in the El Paso Immigration Court was held in January of this year, and she had a follow-up hearing scheduled for mid-May. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, that hearing in May did not occur, and her case has been rescheduled to August of 2020. It's likely that her asylum claim and that of her mother and her daughters will not be heard until 2021. So she presumably will be stuck in Ciudad Juarez, awaiting for an answer from the US government about whether she can have asylum for more than a year, well over a year. She currently is living in pretty terrible conditions in Ciudad Juarez. Her family faces illnesses. She believes that they're caused by contaminated drinking water. She's had a tremendous amount of difficulty obtaining necessary supplies, including diapers, healthy food for her family, and necessary medications, especially for her mother. They face rampant crime in Ciudad Juarez, including kidnapping, sexual assault, extortion. These are commonly executed by cartels and the gangs. Additionally, they are taken advantage of in terms of theft and other similar crimes. Immigrants remaining in Mexico also face harassment and discrimination by the Mexican police, as well as the United States Border Patrol. They are mocked and encouraged to leave Mexico. They are told they are wasting Mexico's resources and the USA won't grant them asylum anyway, so they might as well leave and go back. When they have a court date, all 4 of them, including the 2 young children, must travel to the bridge at the port of entry to cross over into the United States. Erica and her mother and her 2 young children must appear at the bridge very early in the morning, around 3 or 4 a.m. If she doesn't take her children and her mother with her, they could be ordered removed and not allowed to enter the United States. Even though their court hearing in May was canceled and we have their new scheduled court date, which is in August, the United States government is still requiring all 4 of them to return to the bridge in mid-June, merely to obtain documents that indicate the court date that they've already received. If they do not present at the border on their assigned date in mid-June to pick up their paperwork, they could be ordered removed and not allowed to enter the United States. They are forced to risk their health and their safety by appearing at the border with many other immigrants at the same time, despite social distancing recommendations. In addition to the difficulties that they have faced in Mexico, Erica's family suffered persecution in El Salvador. Amongst other violence Erica suffered, she was sexually assaulted, impregnated, and her abuser threatened to kill her and her younger daughter. She doesn't feel safe in El Salvador, but she also doesn't feel safe in Mexico. She has many siblings, as well as nieces and nephews in the United States. They're currently residing in Tennessee, Alabama, Illinois, and of course here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Many of Erika's family members, including her sister Rosa, who was previously at Atonement, have pending asylum claims as well within the United States and immigration courts in the United States. Thank you.
Our detention facilities in the United States have over 40,000 immigrants in custody waiting for hearings. Many of them have been found to have credible fear of returning to their home country, and about 70% of the immigrants being detained have no criminal arrest or conviction record. The detention facilities are incubators for the coronavirus. Otay Mesa Detention Facility outside of San Diego is a privately run facility currently housing over 3,000 immigrants, many who are seeking asylum. The conditions are very bad, and after 19 inmates tested positive for the coronavirus, a federal lawsuit was brought, and ICE was ordered to evaluate each of the potential detainees based upon the two factors of either a flight risk or threat to society. We represented Marcio, who is a Honduran and whose brother is a legal permanent resident and a pastor of a Honduran Christian church in Milwaukee. Marcio was detained at Otay Mesa Detention Facility beginning on November 15th of 2019. We obtained his release in late April of 2020, or approximately 5 months after his initial detention. We submitted numerous documents to the San Diego ICE office and conducted a bond hearing in order to get Marcio released. Marcio suffers from diabetes and was exposed to the coronavirus. The detention facility cannot treat coronavirus, and the way they deal with people who are exposed to the coronavirus is they put them all in the same pod, which can house as many as 400 immigrants. Marcio was released to his brother, and Marcio has no criminal record. Interestingly, Marcio had an asylum officer interview him in January of 2020, and they found that he had a credible fear of returning to Honduras, which means that this government asylum officer found it is likely that Marcio would be successful in seeking asylum. Even with this finding, ICE continued to detain Marcio until we were able to get his release. Marcio's asylum claim is partly based on a political claim, as he's been the subject of political attacks because he was asserting the fact that Honduras is a democracy. He is a part of the Liberty Party and was a vocal, outspoken critic of the president and the current administration in Honduras. The president of Honduras is very corrupt. He has been indicted as a co-conspirator with his brother in the United States federal courts for being involved in trafficking of drugs into the United States. Because of his opposition to the current National Party and the current government president in Honduras, he was attacked and threatened by the government, by the national police, by the MS-13 gang, which has infiltrated all of the governmental agencies. Now that he is in Milwaukee, we will transfer his case to Chicago, where he has a better opportunity to be granted asylum than at the San Diego Immigration Court. The immigration court for the Otay Mesa Detention Facility is actually located inside the Otay Mesa Detention Facility. Otay Mesa is a for-profit, privately run detention facility for ICE. ICE is a division of Homeland Security created in 2001 in the Patriot Act. The corporation that runs Otay Mesa is known as Core Civic, whose parent company has at least 15 U.S. senators as part owners. As of May 15th, Otay Mesa had 94 positive coronavirus inmates and has reported 7 coronavirus deaths. Currently, ICE has more than 40,000 immigrants detained in 200 different facilities in the U.S. The U.S. has the largest number of immigrants detained in the world. The facilities like Otay Mesa do not provide for adequate soap, sanitizer, or social distancing. Otay Mesa received $30 million from the U.S. government for housing immigrants in the year 2019. Closer to home, for about the last 15 years, Kenosha County Detention Facility held between 150 and 200 ICE detainees, with their cases being processed by the Chicago Immigration Court. The U.S. government paid the Kenosha County to house these inmates. On Friday, March 13th of 2020, the Kenosha County Sheriff's Office decided to take a responsible position and stated that bringing new ICE detainees into the Kenosha facility posed too great a risk to the inmates and staff at the facility. The sheriff informed ICE of the decision to accept no new inmates, but they would keep the ICE detainees they currently had. The sheriff based his decision on the fact that it was unknown to the Kenosha detention staff where the new inmates may be coming from or whether they had previously been exposed to the coronavirus. On Sunday, that's 1.5 days later, ICE moved quickly and picked up 170 ICE detainees held in Kenosha County facility and transferred them to private facilities in Southern Illinois and Texas. This certainly made it more difficult for attorneys to have contact with their clients, but also amounted to a loss to Kenosha County of around $360,000 per month or $4.3 million per year. The immigration court backlog is getting worse, and just before the shutdown, as of March 15th of 2020, the backlog was 1,122,700 cases. The backlog has gotten significantly worse because of the shutdown for the last 3 months. Statistically, about 25% of the asylum seekers in the United States are granted asylum after a hearing in 2019. The rate of success for asylum seekers from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala is dramatically low. It averages about 10%. This means that 90% of the asylum seekers seeking asylum in the U.S. from the Northern Triangle, that is Honduras, El Salvador, or Guatemala, have their asylum requests denied. A continuing problem is that many of these asylum seekers do not have access to an attorney, and only 5% of the asylum seekers remaining in Mexico, as Kristin reported to you, are represented by an attorney. We have been extremely fortunate, as our firm has had asylum granted 92% of the time. One reason for our success is the ability to obtain country condition experts for the country the asylum seeker is fleeing. Currently, the conditions are very difficult for all asylum seekers, and of course, Milwaukee has coronavirus, and the south side of Milwaukee has taken a huge toll where a number of our Hispanic clients live. One of the reasons is the density of where they live, as their living situation is very crowded. Most of these people are unable to obtain health insurance and do not seek health care when sick. We continue to only meet clients when required, and will do multiple Zoom meetings every day to meet with our clients and discuss documents and initially meet with new clients. Amazingly, our clients have participated and adapted well, using their cell phones to connect with us during the Zoom session. Thank you for listening to this Zoom discussion concerning asylum seekers. Any contributions will be particularly helpful right now, as many of our clients are not employed and cannot obtain unemployment benefits. Contributions will help offset interpreter fees, transportation costs when needed, and most importantly, the cost of country condition experts, which we have found essential to our asylum success. Thank you and stay safe.
Thank you, Ray, and thank you, Kristin. What's the best way to support you right now?
In terms of financial contributions, you can submit the money to Atonement. They have a separate account for asylum seekers, which is probably the best way, and then they would get the money to us.
Perfect. Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing your really important work right now. Very much appreciate it.
You're very welcome.